She was useless to every man until a broken Apache rancher said, "You're perfect for me." She had heard many different words during her life, but they all carried the same meaning. Some people said she was too quiet. Others said she did not shine enough in a room. A few even said she was difficult to understand. None of them used harsh language, yet their words slowly built a wall around her heart. Over time, she began to believe she was someone people tolerated rather than someone they truly wanted. Her name was known only by a small circle of people who saw her daily routine. She lived in a modest town where everyone moved at their own pace. Each morning she woke up early, prepared for work, and stepped outside with calm determination. She did not expect surprises anymore. Predictability felt safer. At her workplace, she did her job well. She arrived on time, completed tasks carefully, and rarely caused problems. Yet she noticed something that quietly hurt her. Others were often invited to gatherings or casual lunches, while she remained on the edges. People smiled at her politely, but few stayed long enough to truly know her. In the beginning, she tried to change herself. She practiced speaking more during conversations. She laughed louder when others laughed. She dressed differently, hoping to appear more interesting. But every effort felt like wearing clothes that did not belong to her. Eventually, she became tired of trying to match expectations she did not fully understand. Relationships were even more complicated. She had met men who seemed kind at first. They spoke sweetly and made promises about the future. But slowly, something always shifted. Messages became less frequent. Plans were canceled. One by one, they drifted away, leaving her with unanswered questions. The worst part was not the endings themselves, but the silence afterward. She never received clear explanations. Instead, she was left guessing what she had done wrong. This uncertainty planted doubt deep inside her. She replayed conversations in her mind, searching for mistakes she might have made. One evening, after another quiet disappointment, she sat alone in her small living room. Outside, the sky turned dark while soft wind moved through the trees. She watched shadows stretch across the floor and felt a familiar heaviness settle in her chest. It was not dramatic sadness, but a slow, steady loneliness that refused to leave. She decided that night to stop chasing what never stayed. It felt easier to accept solitude than to risk another invisible goodbye. From then on, she focused only on things she could control: her work, her daily habits, and small moments of peace. Days passed into weeks, and weeks turned into months. She learned to enjoy simple pleasures: reading in the early morning, drinking warm tea after work, walking through quiet streets when the town slowed down. These small routines gave her stability. Still, sometimes she watched couples laughing together or families sharing meals, and a quiet question formed inside her. Why not me? She rarely shared these thoughts with anyone. People often misunderstood loneliness, offering quick advice that felt disconnected from reality. She preferred silence over conversations that made her feel even more different. Meanwhile, far from her world, another person lived a life shaped by loss and endurance. The Apache rancher spent his days surrounded by open land and endless skies. His ranch was not large or luxurious, but it carried deep meaning for him. Every fence he repaired and every animal he cared for reminded him that effort still mattered. He had not always been alone. Years earlier, he had imagined a future filled with companionship. Life, however, had taken unexpected turns that left him carrying memories heavier than he showed. Instead of speaking about them, he poured his energy into work. The rhythm of ranch life, waking before sunrise, fixing equipment, guiding horses across fields, gave him structure when emotions felt uncertain. Neighbors respected him but rarely understood him. They saw a strong, quiet man who kept to himself. Few noticed how carefully he listened when others spoke, or how he noticed details most people ignored. He believed people often judged too quickly. Many valued loud confidence and visible success, while overlooking patience and quiet resilience. These thoughts stayed mostly inside him, shaping how he viewed the world. One afternoon, during a trip into town for supplies, he noticed her for the first time. She stood near a small shop, holding a bag and looking unsure whether to enter or leave. There was nothing dramatic about the moment, yet something about her presence caught his attention. She seemed both strong and tired at the same time, like someone who had carried invisible weight for too long. He did not approach her immediately. Instead, he observed quietly, not out of curiosity but recognition. He had seen similar expressions before, in people who had learned to expect disappointment, but continued moving forward anyway. She, unaware of being noticed, continued her routine. Her thoughts were focused on finishing errands quickly so she could return home. She did not expect meaningful encounters anymore. Their paths crossed briefly when they entered the same shop. A simple exchange happened when she accidentally dropped an item, and he helped pick it up. Their eyes met only for a moment, but something shifted, not dramatic attraction, but a calm awareness. She nodded politely and thanked him, assuming it was just another small interaction that would fade from memory. He responded with quiet respect and returned to his task. Neither of them knew that this ordinary moment marked the beginning of change. Later that evening, she found herself thinking about the encounter without understanding why. There had been no grand gesture, no special words. Yet the way he looked at her felt different, not judging, not dismissing, simply present. For the rancher, the memory stayed with him as well. He sensed a familiar kind of strength in her, one that did not demand attention but endured silently. Life continued as usual for both, but something subtle had begun. Two people who had learned to live alone were slowly moving toward a connection neither expected. The rancher returned to his daily routine after that brief meeting, but the memory of the quiet woman stayed with him longer than he expected. He was not someone who thought too much about strangers, yet something about her calm presence felt familiar. It was not only her silence but the way she carried herself, as if she had learned to stand alone without expecting help. Life on the ranch followed a steady rhythm. Each morning began before sunrise. He stepped outside while the sky still held soft shades of blue and gray, breathing in the cool air that carried the smell of earth and grass. The animals needed care, fences required maintenance, and equipment always demanded attention. These tasks grounded him, giving him purpose without complicated emotions. Years earlier, he had believed that hard work alone could protect him from loss, but experience taught him that effort could not control everything. There had been a time when he laughed easily and spoke openly about dreams. That version of himself felt distant now, replaced by someone more careful and observant. Neighbors respected him because he was reliable. If someone needed help repairing a gate or guiding livestock, he showed up without complaint. Yet conversations rarely moved beyond practical matters. People saw his strength but rarely asked about his thoughts. Over time, he became comfortable with that distance. Still, loneliness visited him in quiet moments. In the evening after finishing chores, he often sat on the wooden steps outside his home, watching the wide horizon. The land stretched endlessly, beautiful yet silent. Sometimes he wondered if he had chosen solitude or if solitude had chosen him. Meanwhile, the woman continued her routine in town. She focused on work, determined to keep her life simple. After deciding to stop searching for connection, she felt both relief and emptiness. Relief because she no longer chased expectations. Emptiness because something inside her still wished for understanding. She noticed small changes within herself. She spoke less during casual conversations and avoided situations where she felt compared to others. Friends occasionally invited her to social events, but she often declined politely, saying she was busy or tired. The truth was she feared feeling invisible in crowded rooms. One afternoon, as she walked through town, she saw the rancher again. He stood near a supply store, speaking briefly with the owner. She recognized him immediately, though she told herself it was just coincidence. She considered walking past without acknowledgement, but their eyes met again, and a quiet greeting followed. This time their conversation lasted a little longer. It remained simple, discussing weather changes and how the season affected work. His voice was calm, and he listened carefully when she spoke. She noticed he did not interrupt or rush to fill silence. The space between words felt comfortable rather than awkward. Afterward, she walked away feeling strangely lighter. Nothing extraordinary had happened, yet the interaction felt genuine. She tried not to think too deeply about it, reminding herself that brief conversations did not mean lasting connection. For the rancher, the encounter confirmed what he sensed earlier. She was someone who observed more than she revealed. He respected that quality because he understood how difficult it could be to trust others. Days passed, and their meetings became slightly more frequent. Sometimes they crossed paths at the store or along the street. Each interaction remained modest but meaningful. Slowly, familiarity replaced uncertainty. One evening, during a conversation that lasted longer than usual, she shared a small detail about her life, how she preferred quiet mornings before the world became loud. He nodded, understanding without needing explanation. He spoke about the ranch, describing the calm feeling of watching sunrise over open land. Their experiences were different, yet they shared a similar appreciation for peaceful moments. As trust grew, she noticed something unusual. He did not treat her like someone fragile or overlooked. Instead, he spoke to her as an equal, asking for her thoughts rather than assuming her feelings. This surprised her because she had become used to being dismissed. However, doubt remained inside her. She questioned whether his kindness was temporary or if she misunderstood his intentions. Past experiences had taught her to expect distance eventually. Sometimes she ended conversations early, worried she might grow too comfortable. He sensed her hesitation but did not push. Years of observing people had taught him that trust cannot be forced. Instead, he remained consistent, greeting her warmly, listening attentively, and allowing their connection to develop naturally. One day, he invited her to visit the ranch, suggesting she might enjoy the quiet environment. She hesitated at first. The idea of stepping into someone else's personal world felt intimidating, yet curiosity slowly overcame fear. When she finally arrived, she was surprised by the simplicity of the place. There were no grand displays or attempts to impress. The land felt honest, shaped by effort rather than appearance. He showed her around slowly, explaining how each part of the ranch held meaning. She listened carefully, noticing the pride hidden behind his calm tone. Walking through open fields, she felt a sense of calm she had not experienced in years. The wide space allowed her thoughts to breathe. For a moment, she forgot the labels she had carried for so long. They sat together outside, watching the sky change colors as evening approached. Silence surrounded them, but it did not feel uncomfortable. She realized she did not need to pretend or adjust herself to fit expectations. As the sun lowered, she shared a small piece of her past, how repeated rejection had shaped her belief that she was not enough. She spoke slowly, unsure how he would respond. He listened quietly, his expression thoughtful. He did not rush to offer reassurance or challenge her feelings. Instead, he acknowledged her experience, recognizing the strength it took to continue moving forward despite disappointment. That response affected her deeply. She was used to people offering quick solutions or dismissing her emotions. His patience felt different, creating a space where honesty could exist without fear. When she returned home that night, she felt both hopeful and cautious. Part of her wanted to believe this connection was real. Another part warned her not to expect too much. For the rancher, the evening confirmed something important. He admired her resilience and quiet courage. He sensed that she had been misunderstood by others who valued loud confidence over gentle strength. Their connection was still fragile, like something new growing slowly. Neither of them rushed forward. Instead, they allowed trust to build through small moments, shared conversations, quiet understanding, and mutual respect. Unspoken questions lingered between them. Could two people shaped by loneliness truly find comfort together, or would old fears eventually pull them apart? The answer remained uncertain, but both felt that something meaningful had begun, something stronger than coincidence and deeper than simple friendship. After her first visit to the ranch, something inside her felt different. It was not excitement in a dramatic way, but a quiet shift. For years, she had trained herself not to expect meaningful change. Yet now she found herself thinking about the open fields, the calm wind, and the steady way he listened to her words. The rancher also noticed a change in himself. He had grown used to returning home with only silence waiting for him. Now, when evening came, he wondered if she was thinking about their last conversation. That simple thought brought a feeling he had not allowed himself to feel for a long time: anticipation. They began speaking more regularly. Sometimes he called to ask about her day. Sometimes she stopped by the ranch with small excuses, like bringing fresh bread from town. Neither of them rushed to define what was happening. They allowed the connection to grow naturally, like something that needed time and care. One afternoon, while walking along the fence line together, she noticed how carefully he repaired a broken section. He did not rush. He examined the damage, adjusted each piece, and tested its strength before stepping back. She realized that he approached relationships in the same way, carefully, patiently, making sure nothing was forced. She admired that quality, but fear still followed her. There were moments when her old doubts returned. She would suddenly grow quiet, wondering if he would eventually see her the way others had. On those days, she felt the urge to step back before she could be disappointed. He sensed her distance during one such moment. They were sitting outside near the barn, watching the sky turn soft orange as the sun lowered. She seemed distracted, her thoughts somewhere far away. Instead of asking directly what was wrong, he spoke gently about his own past. He shared how he once believed that strength meant handling everything alone. He admitted that losing important people in his life had made him cautious, even afraid to grow close again. Hearing him speak openly surprised her. She had never seen him as someone uncertain. To her, he seemed steady and unshaken. But now she realized that even strong people carry hidden doubts. Encouraged by his honesty, she shared more of her own story. She described how repeated rejection had shaped her belief that she lacked something important. She explained how she often compared herself to others, always finding herself smaller in comparison. He listened carefully and then asked her a simple question. "Who decided what you are supposed to be?" She did not have an answer. The question stayed in her mind long after the conversation ended. For years, she had allowed other people's opinions to shape her self-image. She had accepted their judgments without challenging them. Over the following weeks, their bond deepened. They began spending longer hours together. She helped with light tasks around the ranch, learning things she had never tried before. At first, she felt unsure, worried she might fail. But he guided her patiently, never criticizing small mistakes. One morning, while trying to organize tools in the storage shed, she accidentally dropped a box. She froze, expecting frustration. Instead, he simply smiled and helped her pick everything up. That small reaction meant more to her than he realized. For him, her presence brought warmth back into spaces that had felt empty. He noticed how she paid attention to small details, like the way certain horses responded to gentle voices. He admired her quiet kindness toward animals, seeing strength in her calm patience. Still, challenges appeared. Not everyone in town understood their growing closeness. Some people whispered, questioning why someone like him would choose someone like her. Those words reached her ears one day while she stood in line at a store. The old pain returned quickly. She went home feeling embarrassed and unsure. Doubt whispered that she did not belong in his world. When he noticed her silence the next evening, he asked directly this time. She hesitated, then told him about the comments she had heard. She expected him to dismiss them casually, but instead he became serious. He explained that people often judge what they do not understand. He reminded her that his choices were his own, not shaped by outside voices. His steady tone made it clear that he valued her presence without hesitation. Even so, she struggled internally. Years of insecurity could not disappear overnight. There were nights when she lay awake, wondering if she should protect herself by stepping away before things grew deeper. Meanwhile, he wrestled with his own fears. He worried that his past pain might one day hurt her. He questioned whether he was ready to fully open his heart again. One evening, a sudden storm moved across the land. Strong winds shook the trees, and heavy rain poured over the fields. She had stayed late at the ranch that day, helping organize supplies. When the storm began, he insisted she remain until it passed. They sat inside while thunder echoed outside. The power flickered briefly, leaving the room lit only by a small lantern. In that quiet space, surrounded by the sound of rain, emotions felt closer to the surface. She admitted she was afraid, not of the storm, but of hoping for something that might not last. He looked at her steadily and said he was afraid too. Afraid of losing again. Afraid of not being enough for someone who deserved stability. For the first time, they both saw that fear existed on both sides. Neither was perfect. Neither was free from doubt. But both were willing to face uncertainty together. When the storm finally slowed, the air outside felt fresh and clean. They stepped onto the porch, watching clouds drift away to reveal a clear sky. Something inside them felt lighter, as if speaking their fears aloud had reduced their power. That night marked a turning point. They were no longer two lonely individuals simply sharing time. They were two people choosing to understand each other's wounds. In the following days, she felt stronger. She still had moments of insecurity, but now she questioned them instead of accepting them as truth. She began to see herself through his eyes, not as someone useless, but as someone steady and genuine. He also changed. He laughed more easily and allowed himself to imagine a future that included companionship again. Their connection was no longer fragile. It was growing roots, strengthened by honesty and shared vulnerability. As the weeks passed, their connection grew stronger, but with that strength came deeper emotions neither of them could ignore anymore. The easy conversations and shared quiet moments slowly turned into something more meaningful. Both of them felt it, yet neither rushed to speak about it openly. She found herself spending more time at the ranch. What began as occasional visits slowly became part of her routine. She helped with small tasks, learned how to care for the animals, and sometimes simply walked across the fields with him in silence. The land felt different now, not just open space, but a place where she felt accepted. He noticed how comfortable she had become. In the beginning, she moved carefully, unsure where to stand or what to do. Now she laughed more easily and spoke with confidence when sharing ideas. Watching this change filled him with quiet pride, though he never said it directly. One morning, they worked together repairing an old wooden gate. The task required patience, and at one point she struggled to hold a heavy piece steady. Frustration appeared on her face, and she apologized quickly, saying she was slowing him down. He stopped and looked at her calmly. He told her she was not a burden and that learning takes time. His voice carried sincerity, not just kindness. That moment stayed with her because she had rarely heard someone speak to her without hidden judgment. Despite these positive moments, her past doubts still appeared unexpectedly. Sometimes she watched him interacting confidently with others in town and wondered why he chose to spend time with someone like her. The thought did not come from jealousy but from long-standing insecurity. One afternoon, she overheard two people talking quietly at a cafe. They did not realize she was close enough to hear. Their words were not openly cruel, but they questioned their relationship. They wondered what he saw in her and suggested he could easily find someone more impressive. Those words followed her like a shadow for the rest of the day. She returned home feeling heavy and uncertain. Old fears returned stronger than before, whispering that maybe she was only temporary in his life. When he noticed her distance during their next meeting, he felt concern. She avoided eye contact and answered questions briefly. He sensed something was wrong but waited until they were alone on the porch before asking gently. At first, she hesitated, trying to avoid the conversation. But eventually, she told him what she had heard. Speaking the words aloud made her feel vulnerable, as if she was exposing something fragile inside her. He listened carefully, his expression serious but calm. Instead of reacting with anger toward the people who spoke, he focused on her feelings. He asked how those words made her feel about herself. She admitted something she had never said directly before, that she often felt useless compared to others. She believed she lacked the qualities people admired. Saying it out loud felt both painful and relieving. He did not respond immediately. Silence stretched between them, but it felt thoughtful rather than uncomfortable. Finally, he spoke slowly, choosing his words carefully. He told her that the world often measures worth using loud confidence, appearance, or popularity. But he had learned through life that true strength is quieter. He said he saw qualities in her that many people miss: patience, honesty, resilience, and the ability to listen deeply. She struggled to believe him. Years of self-doubt created resistance inside her. She shook her head slightly, saying that others never saw those things. He answered gently that others might not look closely enough. The conversation continued into the evening. She shared stories from her past moments when she felt overlooked or replaced. He listened without interruption, offering understanding instead of solutions. As the sky darkened, the atmosphere grew more emotional. She felt tears rise but tried to hide them. He noticed and told her she did not need to hide anything here. That simple sentence broke through her defenses. She finally allowed herself to cry openly, not from sudden sadness but from years of held emotions releasing at once. He stayed beside her quietly, offering presence rather than pressure. When her tears slowed, she whispered the words that had lived inside her for so long, that she believed she was useless to every man who had known her. The confession filled the space between them. She expected him to offer polite reassurance like others had done before. Instead, he took a deep breath and spoke with steady honesty. He told her that people often misunderstand what makes someone valuable. He said perfection is not about meeting every expectation, but about being real, genuine, and true to oneself. Then looking directly into her eyes, he said softly, "You're perfect for me." The words felt different from anything she had heard before. They did not sound like empty comfort. They sounded like truth spoken without hesitation. She felt surprised and overwhelmed at the same time. Part of her wanted to believe him completely. Another part felt afraid to trust those words fully. He explained that he did not mean perfection as flawless or idealized. He meant that her quiet strength balanced his own experiences. Her presence brought calm into his life. Her honesty made him feel understood. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The air felt still, as if time paused to allow the meaning of the moment to settle. After that evening, something shifted between them. Their connection became clearer, no longer hidden behind uncertainty. They began to express care more openly, though still gently and without rushing. However, emotional growth brought new challenges. She worried about becoming dependent on his acceptance. He worried about moving too quickly and overwhelming her. They agreed silently to move forward with patience, allowing their relationship to grow naturally rather than forcing change. Over the next days, she felt lighter. The words he spoke continued to echo in her mind. Slowly, she began to question the old belief that she lacked value. She noticed small moments where she acted with confidence, speaking more openly, making decisions without second-guessing herself. He also felt change within himself. The walls he had built after past losses softened. He allowed himself to imagine a future again, something he had avoided for years. One evening, as they watched the sunset together, she realized that love did not always arrive as sudden excitement. Sometimes it grew quietly through understanding, patience, and shared healing. After that evening when he spoke the words she never expected to hear, something inside her began to change slowly but deeply. The change was not sudden or dramatic. She did not wake up the next morning feeling completely confident or free from doubt. Instead, it felt like a quiet shift in direction, as if she had finally turned toward a path she had avoided for many years. She continued visiting the ranch, but now the atmosphere between them carried a new understanding. Their conversations became more open. She shared small thoughts she previously kept hidden, and he listened with the same steady patience that had first drawn her toward him. One morning, while walking across the field together, she realized she no longer felt like an outsider in his world. The land that once felt unfamiliar now felt welcoming. The animals recognized her voice. The routine of work began to feel natural rather than intimidating. Still, she remained cautious. Years of believing she was not enough could not disappear completely. There were moments when she wondered if the happiness she felt would last or if it would slowly fade like past experiences. He noticed those moments of hesitation, but did not push her to move faster emotionally. Instead, he focused on consistency. Every action showed reliability, small gestures like remembering details she mentioned or quietly supporting her during difficult days. Consistency became the foundation of trust between them. As their relationship deepened, she began to rediscover parts of herself she had forgotten. She laughed more freely. She allowed herself to express opinions without fear of being dismissed. For the first time in a long while, she felt comfortable taking up space without apologizing for it. One afternoon, while helping him organize supplies in the barn, she paused and realized something surprising. She was enjoying herself. Not because she needed to impress anyone, but because she felt useful and valued in a natural way. She mentioned this realization to him, almost shyly. He smiled and told her she had always been valuable. She simply needed someone who recognized it clearly. Those words stayed with her long after. Meanwhile, he experienced his own transformation. For years, he had protected himself by keeping emotional distance from others. Allowing someone into his life again required courage he had not realized he still possessed. Yet being with her reminded him that connection did not weaken him, it strengthened him. Challenges still appeared. Some people in town continued to question their relationship quietly. They noticed the whispers and curious looks, but instead of letting those opinions create distance, they learned to focus on their shared understanding. One evening, she admitted she still worried about whether she truly belonged beside him. Instead of dismissing her fear, he asked her what belonging meant to her. She thought carefully before answering. She said belonging meant feeling safe enough to be herself without fear of being replaced or judged. He nodded and told her that she already belonged because she had never needed to pretend around him. That simple exchange deepened her confidence more than grand declarations ever could. Seasons began to change. Days grew warmer, and the landscape shifted with new colors. With each passing week, their bond felt stronger and more natural. They developed shared routines, morning coffee on the porch, evening walks across the fields, quiet conversations under open skies. These routines built a sense of stability she had never experienced before. One day, while sitting together watching the sunset, she reflected on how much had changed since they first met. She remembered the woman who believed she was invisible, someone who expected rejection before connection. That version of herself felt distant now, though she respected the strength it took to survive those years. She turned to him and thanked him not for saving her, but for seeing her clearly when she could not see herself. He answered gently that she had always carried that strength within her. He simply recognized it. Their relationship did not feel like a dramatic love story filled with constant excitement. Instead, it felt steady and real, built through patience, understanding, and shared growth. One afternoon, while visiting town together, she noticed something new. She no longer felt small or invisible among others. She walked beside him confidently, not because she depended on him, but because she had learned to value herself. Later that evening, they returned to the ranch and sat quietly under the stars. The sky stretched endlessly above them, reminding both of how life continues to expand beyond past limitations. She realized that love had not changed her into someone new. Instead, it helped her return to who she truly was before doubt shaped her identity. He felt something similar. Being with her reminded him that vulnerability is not weakness but courage. Allowing someone to see his true self had brought peace he thought was lost forever. As time moved forward, they continued building a life together, one small moment at a time. They faced ordinary challenges, busy days, moments of disagreement, unexpected problems. But each challenge strengthened their trust rather than breaking it. Their story became less about overcoming loneliness and more about creating shared purpose. She discovered new confidence through meaningful work on the ranch. He found renewed joy in companionship and emotional connection. People around them slowly noticed the change. The woman once described as invisible now carried quiet confidence. The rancher, once seen as distant, now smiled more often. Neither of them felt the need to prove anything to others. They understood that true connection does not require outside approval. One evening, while standing together at the edge of the field, she looked at him and realized something important. The words he spoke months earlier, "You're perfect for me," had changed her life not because they made her flawless, but because they allowed her to see her worth through acceptance rather than comparison.